The Big Bicycle Race. Story by Mariletta Robinson. Pictures by Leslie Morrow. When you hear the bunny bee crystals fall, turn the page. Sybil Sadie was standing guard at the secret entrance to the cabbage patch. Suddenly, she clapped her hands and jumped up and down. "He's coming, y'all! I hear him! Xavier's coming!" The Cabbage Patch Kids dropped what they were doing and came running. In a moment, a boy gently pushed his way through the vine-covered entrance and found himself staring into a ring of smiling faces. "Tell us a story, Xavier," said Raimi. "I'll do better than that," said Xavier. "I'll tell you about some real-life goings-on. You ever hear of a down-home party?" The kids shook their heads. "That's some kind of a get-together, a family celebration, isn't it?" asked Tyler Bow. Xavier grinned. "That's right, it is. They pack picnic lunches and play games and have races." "I like the racing part," said Sybil Sadie, "with prizes." "Xavier," she said, "couldn't we have a down-home party here?" "Sure," said Xavier. "That's a wonderful idea." "What kind of race could we have, Xavier?" said Tyler Bow. "Well, there are foot races, sack races, bike races." "A bike race! That's it," the other children cried. "Sounds like you're all set," said Xavier. "I better be getting home, but don't worry, I'll be back." "Let's get to work," said Bobby Jean. "We'll need to make a list of the kinds of sandwiches we want." "Bananas and honey," said Will Henry. "Yum, yum." "Ugh," said Baby Dodd. Then Otis Lee said, "Let's go over to the castle of the Queen of the Bunny Bees and tell her about the race." "It's a delightful idea," the Queen said. "Please let me donate a prize for the winner of the race. At the edge of the patch you will find a pony. That will be the prize." Sybil Sadie's eyes grew wide as she thought about the pony. With luck, she could win it. The kids scrambled through the narrow passage to the hidden entrance of the Queen's castle. Once outside, they ran to get their bikes. On her way out, Georgia Ann saw Dawson Glenn standing by himself, with his hands stuck in his pockets. "Why, what's the matter, Dawson Glenn?" she said. "Oh, nothing," said Dawson Glenn. "Only I know I can't ride as fast as the other kids can. I might as well not even enter the old race." Dawson Glenn kicked at a pebble and walked slowly away. Sybil Sadie came out, pushing her bike. "What's the matter with Dawson Glenn?" she asked. Georgia Ann told her what Dawson Glenn had said. "We ought to help him learn to ride," she added. Sybil Sadie frowned. "Not me," she said. "I'll have to practice myself if I'm going to win that pony." Otis Lee came out chuckling. "You ought to see Dawson Glenn's bike," he said. "It looks like it's been in a fight with a bulldozer." "Couldn't we help him fix it up?" said Georgia Ann. "Not me," said Otis Lee. "I've got to work on my own bike if I'm going to win that race." "Well, I'm going to help him," said Georgia Ann. And she rode off to find Dawson Glenn. The next day, Georgia Ann and Dawson Glen practiced. When she picked him up from the ground and brushed the dirt off him, she said, "Let's try it again. You almost got it that time." Otis Lee went zooming by. He felt good, but when he looked and saw Dawson Glen sprawled in the dust, he felt a little less happy. Maybe he should have given Dawson Glen a little bit of help. As she sped down a hill, Sybil Sadie glanced over and saw Dawson Glen trudging up a hill, pushing his bike. A little tight knot started to form in her stomach. "It's no use, Georgia Ann," said Dawson Glen. "We've been practicing all day, and I still can't make it to the bottom of the hill without falling off. And anyway, my bike's in no shape for the race." "I know," said Georgia Ann. "If I could only find a wrench, maybe we could fix it. We just can't give up." "Would this help?" There stood Otis Lee holding out a wrench. "I got to thinking," he said. "No race and no pony is worth it if it makes me act ugly to my friends." "That goes for me too," said Sybil Sadie, smiling behind Otis Lee. "Now, Dawson Glen, you come with me. I know some tricks that might help you." "And I'll see what I can do with this bike," said Otis Lee. And for the rest of the week, Sybil Sadie and Otis Lee took turns helping Dawson Glen. At last the day arrived, the day of the down-home party. The party was a great success. Everyone played games, ate their fill, and had a good time. Finally, it was time for the last event of the day, the big bicycle race. The Cabbage Patch Kids lined up their bikes at the starting line. Colonel Casey climbed up on a stump. "Now, I reckon you all know the rules for this race," he said. 3 times around the cabbage patch, and the first one to finish is the winner. If you fall off, get back on your bike and keep a-going." Several kids looked at Dawson Glen, who blushed and looked away. Otis Lee and Sybil Sadie looked at each other and tightened their grips on their handlebars. "All right now, on your marks, get set, go!" A cloud of dust rose as the riders took off. When it settled, Otis Lee saw that he was in the lead. Ducking his head into the wind, he pedaled as hard as he could. He could hear the other bikes getting closer, but he crossed the line ahead of the others. "2 more laps to go," called Colonel Casey. Sybil Sadie's braids were flying straight out behind her as she crossed the line. Otis Lee was just ahead of her, hunched over his bike. She could hear the hum of his wheels. Leaning forward, she took a deep breath and began to pedal steadily, faster and faster. By the time they reached the starting line the second time, she was in the lead. "1 more lap," called Colonel Casey. Dawson Glen had started the race next to Georgia Ann. He didn't expect to win, but he was happy he could keep up with the others. Then, to his surprise, he pulled ahead of Georgia Ann and the other racers, one by one. Now he was in 3rd place. The wind blew in his face, and the trees zipped by. He felt as if he were flying. Now he was even with Otis Lee. Now he was catching up with Sybil Sadie. Zoom, he crossed the finish line. The winner, shouted Colonel Casey. Dawson Glen. The Queen of the Bunny Bees was waiting in her throne room. The prize goes to Dawson Glen, she said. Otis Lee felt disappointed. But if anyone had to beat him, he was glad that it was Dawson Glen. Sybil Sadie thought about Dawson Glen riding on the pony. If anyone had to beat her, she was glad it was he. Dawson Glen whispered to the Queen. Dawson Glen wants me to announce that he wants all the rest of you kids to care for the pony, too. Hooray for Dawson Glen, cheered all the kids. Then Will Henry shouted, "Let's eat!" And everyone cheered again. Xavier brought out a strange contraption, a big wooden tub with a funny-looking contraption on the top, which he said was an ice cream maker for the picnic. After the kids had eaten and enjoyed the delicious ice cream Xavier made, they all went to find the pony. Sybil Sadie fed it an apple, and all the kids admired it. Finally, they all lay back to watch the clouds turn pink over the cabbage patch. It's been a wonderful down-home party, thought Georgia Ann. She smiled down at Baby Dodd, who had fallen asleep in her lap. A real family celebration.